Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Max, and welcome to Maximus Uncensored Episode 9. Thank you for joining me. This is my full podcast, and usually available on Rumble, my Rumble channel. Make sure you subscribe to my Rumble channel. Should be right there, a link below the title. Click it. And I also do this for YouTube. So a lot going on. It's been kind of crazy. I've been examining and dwelling and thinking upon the chaos in the Middle East and what's going on with the Taliban retaking Afghanistan, which kind of was expected, and a lot of people knew that was going to happen, apparently, for many months. And a lot of questions from people as to what's going on. Seems to be a lot of movement, and there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Let's just take it from the top, shall we? Okay, the big question I think a lot of people are asking, either quietly or openly, is what about Biden? Will he be removed from office? Let's play out and game out the scenarios, and this is what I like to do. Let's go to the Constitution, let's look at what that says, and let's think about it from a political perspective. According to Senator Rick Scott, the 25th Amendment should be invoked. It makes it interesting coming from him because he's the highest ranking official in Washington to actually openly say this has to be discussed. Now, remember just a short time ago, right, through most of his presidency, his first term, President Trump was often the target of a lot of discussion regarding the 25th Amendment, really pretty much since he took office because of his temperamental nature, okay? His statements and whatnot, that was usually a topic that would come up on the far left, and it was discussed by certain officials in the Democratic Party. So it's sort of tit for tat. I don't really know if the 25th Amendment could be used. Certainly when it regards to the disaster in Afghanistan, that was a political decision that was wrong and doesn't really meet constitutional muster for the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment requires that the president not be able to execute his offices because he's either physically impaired or, of course, mentally impaired. We can make jokes about Biden's mental decline all we want, but the fact is that was a political decision, and if you're going after him on that ground, hey, you made the wrong decision, we're going to 25A you, okay? It doesn't work that way. I mean, of course, heck, the Constitution to these people doesn't matter anyway, so they could figure out a way around anything. Actually, if a president does something that amounts to a disastrous decision, you could start talking about a political decision. You could start talking about impeachment. But even then, with the impeachment process for the president, you have to have which amounts to a crime, a misdemeanor, or a high crime, which would be a felonious act. So I don't even know really if it would meet that criteria. But again, we've impeached presidents for what? For phone calls that people didn't like for some reason, for making a speech to supporters to go and petition peaceably a redress of grievances, which is their constitutional right. We've also impeached a president for literally lying about his infidelity. Of course, he lied under oath, so technically it was a crime. But and my point is, we've impeached presidents for utter nonsense, for political reasons. Impeachment's is in and of itself a political process. So, yeah, sure, why not? We can impeach him for it. 25th Amendment, well, we all know Biden's got dementia. I mean, everybody knows it if they're being honest. The only people that don't believe Biden has dementia, I believe, don't even understand what dementia is, or they're in denial, or if you want to make a joke about it, they have dementia themselves. I mean, they have to have dementia to have voted for this guy and support him. But they certainly have mental problems. So, I don't know. But I'll just say this, 25Aing him, I don't know if it meets constitutional muster. But if we're just playing it out, gaming it out, let's talk about it for a minute. Let's say it does. Here's the deal. To quote Biden, I'm going to use this phrase. Here's the deal. I don't think they're going to do it. the Democrats. And I don't think a lot of Republicans are going to go along with it, not for the reasons you think. Biden is a disaster. There's no doubt about it, right? The deep state, essentially, the intelligence community, the Pentagon, the Department of Defense to begin with. Eventually, we're going to find out the CIA as well, probably the FBI. We're going to start throwing him under the bus. Everyone's going to blame, because he's just a terrible first of all, he's always been a terrible person, really, when you think about it. He's not well known for saying the right thing at the right time. But the idea that he was going to blame them when they warned him, and I believe they probably did warn him, you're basically biting your nose to spite your face. Don't attack the hand that feeds you. I mean, what other type of colloquialisms could I use to describe what he did as being really a faux pas of the worst order? And so the deep state is attacking him. I don't use the term deep state very often. It's not my thing, but the establishment are attacking him. Okay, so we'll see how long. We'll see where that goes. The administration is in free fall and it's imploding. But let's say they want to get rid of him because he's just a terrible president, and he's actually, bad for them in many ways. Whoever them is, right? Whoever they are, right? If you remove Biden, you 25A him or whatever, that's the only way to really get him out, right? You elevate Kamala Harris, right? Whatever her name is, the one that no one else likes. I mean, and nobody likes her. Nobody and their aunt and uncle don't like her. She's the horrible, vice president, and she's just disliked, almost unanimous. I think she's unanimously disliked. The press doesn't even cover her. I mean, what better testament can you say about their disdain for her? They don't like her. The mainstream media doesn't like her. She's an unlikable person. I mean, if you're in a room with her and you're talking to her, she's just an unlikable person. And you can put your politics on the side. She just is that way. Some people just rub you the wrong way, and I'm not trying to make any pun there. But if you remove him, you elevate her. And if you elevate her, you put a person in that you really don't like into the presidency. And according to the 25th Amendment, she, or the president, then new president has to turn around and, because there's a vacancy in the vice presidency, appoint a new vice president. But here's the thing. Here's the problem with that. She, or the vice president, is the deciding vote right now in the U.S. Senate, because they're split evenly 50-50. To elevate the vice president, which automatically happens upon the removal or resignation of a sitting president, and you have no tiebreaker in the Senate. So you have an evenly split caucus in the Senate. What does that do immediately? Well, immediately it removes the Senate leadership from Chuck Schumer, because the Senate is no longer controlled by the Democrats. It doesn't give it to the Republicans. You end up with the quintessential, or I should say the perfect example of deadlock in the Senate. And there's no way of breaking that deadlock in the Senate, frankly. There's none. Then you have this other problem. You have the fact that the sitting president, or the new president, will have to appoint a vice president, and that vice president has to be confirmed by the Senate and the House in a majority vote. The Senate is unlikely to confirm any appointment by Harris in this type of a debacle. Now, you may say, well, the pressure, I don't believe it, the Romney and the rest of them would vote. I don't know about that, guys and ladies. I'm not sure about that, because McConnell, when he wants to, can really whip those votes. And the bigger thing, the bigger point here is, in doing so, in confirming a vice presidential appointment to the Senate by the president, a vice presidential appointment by the new president, by confirming that, it's on a department head, you're confirming the deciding vote against your own caucus. You see, what happens is, by them being deadlocked, the Democrats can't get any legislation through the Senate now without Republican support. And it isn't a matter question of the filibuster or any of that. They simply don't have a simple majority anymore. And when I say a simple majority, I mean as long as they have the tie-breaking vote in the vice presidency. So, the Republicans literally could just hold up the Senate until 2022, after the 2022 elections, by just holding the caucus together and forcing the Democrats to compromise on every piece of legislation they want to get through. Now, you say, well, then who would become vice president? Well, no one. The 25th Amendment merely states that the new president appoints up and the vice president, and the Congress, or the House and the Senate, have to confirm that appointment. It doesn't say it has to happen. It doesn't say when it has to happen. It just says that's the process. Otherwise, you have that vacancy there indefinitely, or at least until the next presidential election, or until the next Senate election, and that one party or the other gains enough votes to confirm the appointment they want. So that is the type of problem the Democrats have in removing Biden, is they lose a vote, and a significant vote, the deciding vote for all legislation, including the appointment or the confirmation of the next vice president in the Senate. And I don't think they want to take that risk, especially for someone like Kamala Harris, because she is simply the most loathed, I would say, and this is not even, there's no argument here. She's actually the most disliked ranking official in Washington, D.C. So, I mean, I don't think they want to do that. There was another question people asked me, well, doesn't this House Speaker then get elevated to Vice President? No, that does not happen. The Speaker only becomes President if there's a vacancy in both the presidency and the Vice Presidency. That's the Presidential Succession Act of 1947. So the Democrats only control, the House by 3 votes. What they could do, if you could make a backroom deal, or if one of them or two of them were to switch parties or whatever, and it's happened before, if the Republicans can stick together, maybe get 5 Democrats, would be better, give them a little bit of a cushion. They could introduce a motion to vacate the chair. If you pass that, I think they need 216 votes for that. Speaker Pelosi automatically is removed from her House speakership, and that triggers, under House rules, a new election in the House for Speaker. Other Republicans could have, in the parliamentary systems, they could put together a coalition with a few moderate Democrats. I mean, this is totally theoretical, everybody, but we're living in crazy times, so crazier things have happened. But I'm just saying what's possible. They could put together a coalition government, if you would, for the House, a coalition leadership essentially, with a few Democrats, and control the floor. They could also appoint a new speaker. Whatever happens in the next year, that's a possibility. If the GOP takes the House next year, during the midterms, they're going to put a new speaker in anyway. At that point, we're probably still going to be discussing whether or not the 25th Amendment will be invoked, whether Biden's going to resign, whatever. But they're still faced with the same pickle, and that is Harris. No one likes her. Nobody wants her around. She's not very bright. She's not very smart. There's nothing really of value about her to anyone. And I'm not being a partisan when I say that. I'm just being an objectivist, and I'm looking at what's happening. And you're blind if you don't know that. I mean, she's very disliked by people on the far left, and within the Democratic Party, and within minority groups within the Democratic Party. She's just a disliked individual. You elevate her, you're still faced with the situation of a vacancy in the vice presidency for the remainder of Biden's term, which would be less than 2 years. So you have a lame duck president who nobody wants, who wasn't elected to the presidency, in Harris. You have the Republicans, after, let's say, sweeping the midterms, if that happens, taking the House. They have their own speaker who's a Republican. Let's say it's McCarthy or anybody else. It could be Jim Jordan. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen. And there's really no reason, and the Republicans in the Senate are looking more and more likely that they're going to pick up the Senate anyway. Why in the world, for that last 2 years, or less than 2 years, would they even want to confirm any appointment by Harris? I mean, I don't see any inducement for McConnell to do that. I think he would hold the GOP caucus in the Senate together And I think that the Republicans in the House would never confirm a vacancy. Forget about it. They're further right and there are less rhinos in the House than there are in the Senate. So I'm talking about after the midterm. So let's say we're faced with the same situation a year and a half from now. I just don't see them doing that, confirming anybody for that appointment. They'll leave the vacancy. They'll leave the vice presidency vacant and let the 2024 elections play out. Their counter argument's always going to be, well, if something happens and Harris has to leave office, Speaker Jim Jordan becomes president of the United States, and he would under the Presidential Succession Act of 1947. That's exactly what would happen. So, I mean, I've just gamed out a few scenarios for you on this. It's very crazy. With regards to Afghanistan, it's a tragedy. It is a absolutely shocking. How bad it is unbelievable. And it really goes to show you a lot of things. But it goes to show you how the United States being involved in foreign conflicts has repeated the same mistakes it made in Vietnam in many ways, but also the same mistakes that other empires have made throughout history. The British, the Soviets, and now the United States. And the Romans in ancient times, there are certain parts of the world, especially with regards to Asia. And by the way, when you're, and a lot of people don't know this, if you're in the Middle East, for the most part, especially if you're in Afghanistan or you're in Iraq or you're in Iran or any of those countries, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, what have you, you're in Asia. Parts of course, when it regards to with regards to Saudi Arabia and that part of the world, you're what they used to be called Asia Minor, but you're in Asia, and conflicts in that part of the world, from the Middle East all the way to South Asia, okay, Southeast Asia specifically, and of course I'm thinking about Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. This is a bad area to get in. So many empires have gotten dragged down into a quagmire that they were never able to extract themselves out of, except at great loss of life and material, money and material in general. I'm just saying that this is just another lesson in history. And of course, political reasons is why we lost wars in the past and why this is happening the way it is. But you just don't do this. And of course, we know President Trump's plan was quite different. In fact, Taliban months ago were violating the agreement they signed with President Trump. Or with Secretary Pompeo. So, this is what we're dealing with right now. And I just hope, we all have to pray that those Americans that are trapped there are evacuated and they get them out. And if Biden wants to do something right, he should send in a lot of troops to basically evacuate Kabul and restore order in Kabul, first of all, and to evacuate it. And we should hold a contingency plan of troops in that part of the world indefinitely. Now, I'm not talking about keeping tens of thousands of troops. What I'm saying is we should always keep at least 2,500, 3,000 troops there at the American embassy in Kabul. That would have prevented all of this from happening. Well, anyways, another topic of discussion. We can do that in the future. Anyways, guys, I hope this podcast is of some help to all of you. And if you want to, and I highly recommend it, sign up for one of my seminars. They're coming up. I have my new one, Outlaws, The Illustrated Life and Times of the Gunfighter, which is August 26th to the 28th, with the encore August 30th through September 1st. So if you're into Old West gunfighters, if you're into discussion on criminal activity during the late 19th century in the Southwest United States. If you want to discuss the corruption by territorial governors, sheriff's departments, and local officials and justices of the peace, join my seminar coming up on the Old West. This is going to be a very, very different look at the Old West. We're going to be discussing this Socratically in a major Socratic discussion. There are going to be dozens and dozens of patriots attending. We'll be having a Socratic discussion on a lot of very interesting events and characters from the American West. As a matter of fact, I may have to do a second part to this because it's gotten so big. So another thing too, Civics Maximus is back next month. Civics Maximus 401, the Anti-Federalist. I'll be rolling that out. That's my next seminar. That'll be at the ending of September. And in October, we'll be continuing with the discussions, more discussions on republic and democracy and keeping our republic with Civics Maximus 101 and 201. Listen, God bless you all. If you're interested in attending, send me a DM, send me an email, contact my assistants in my rooms. Make sure you're following me on Twitter, Telegram, Getter. What is it? Getter. Parler and Gab. It's all the same at Maximus_4EVR. And pass it on to your friends and share this video if you liked it and give me a rumble. Talk to you later. Be well. God bless you. Ciao.